Good morning. We're talking about knees today, and this is going to be a bit of a workshop-y type practice. Knees can fall into a huge spectrum about how they feel, what you're capable of, what your capacity is, depending on what's actually going on in the knee. But the consistent thing with all things knees is that this is the knee. The knee is here. It is the midway point between the hip and the foot. And as I mentioned before, the only skeletal thing that is unique to the knee is this sucker right here, and that's the patella or the kneecap. The top of the knee is the bottom of the femur. The bottom of the knee is the top of the tibia. One goes down to the ankle, the other one goes up to the hip. So to look at these two joints here is so incredibly vital if you want to have better experience at your knee. And because so many muscles that cross the hip also cross the knee, I tend to focus in on the hips to start with because there's so much available to improve here. Let's improve it and see what happens. So whether somebody is just having a little bit of knee stuff or it's knee stuff related to an iliotibial band issue or whether it's a knee replacement, if we come here, a lot can be freed up. Now, what's interesting is you're going to notice when I walk back is I've got these funny little blue things in my toes. And these are called Joya toes. Now, this is a really old version of the Joya toes. I don't know if they look exactly like this in terms of color, but I'll put a link in the body. I don't get a single cent. I don't think Joya even knows who the heck I am. But these are really, really cool in terms of supporting through your feet, which can, if your feet have a big relationship with your knees, can also improve how you feel through those knees. Okay, so you're going to see that I'm going to have those suckers in my toes as we move through just to highlight what's possible. So you'll see here, they're my toes, they're flat on the bottom. I can actually just stand like so, yeah? Okay, so we're gonna begin with, one sec, grab my strap again. We're gonna begin with a strap and a block while in sitting. I'm just gonna put this back in between my toes here. All right. And we're going to begin in sitting with a strap. And then if you've got some knee stuff, you can explore this. And what's really great actually about this little practice I'm going to play with you is that you don't have to have knee issues to benefit from it, right? The thing with people with knee issues, a lot of knee issue mechanical things that I've seen are very similar to those people who have SI issues. I remember teaching a workshop at the yoga conference a number of years ago. One day I was doing knees, one day I was doing SI joint. And what was interesting is it wasn't hugely different in terms of movements I was teaching. I was telling the group that the distinction between SI and really any issue in our body is we all have an area that we can call a weakness. And I'm putting that in air quotes because I'm not really sure it's truly a weakness. It's just where we tend to express stuff that lets us know that there is limitation or dysfunction present. And so for people who have SI joint issues, that's where they get it expressed. And those of you who have knee issues, that's where it expresses for you, right? And so where you have to step back from is, okay, where the pain is not the problem. Where the pain is an expression of a problem. So then we have to kind of take a little step back and go, okay, what is actually going on here mechanically that's contributing to the way that I'm loading in my body, which has me feel it in my knees. Okay, so this could actually be beneficial for lots of people, but because I've labeled this knees, we're talking knees. Now we're going to take the legs wide. What I've done here is I've strapped my legs mid-thigh with the strap, and I'm going to take my legs out wide this way. Now I'm taking my hands, and you've seen me do this on the floor before. I'm taking my hands and I want to feel in through the front of my hips. Now I'm in hip flexion here on the chair, but I'm not taking my legs any more into hip flexion. So when I'm pressing my legs wide, these hip flexors ought not to fire. There ought not to be some thickening underneath my fingers. And if there is, like say there is, and you're pushing your legs wide, you're demonstrating you've got the ability to move your legs wide, but you don't have the capability to go as far as you want to. So find the distance that you want to go here, that these guys in the front, these hip flexors, are not actually engaging. Now it's probably going to feel a lot less than you wanted it to, which is okay. You're developing the capability and you're understanding what's contributing to why your knees are loading and experiencing what they're experiencing. And then just feel your feet on the floor. Feel the center of the heel, the ball of the foot, and the base of the pinky toe, so that you're not gripping through your toes or the arches of your feet or anywhere down the length of your leg. Okay? Good. Now come from that. And we're going to do the same thing with a block. So now the block comes between your legs. And we're in as close up as you can. So right into the meat, like your inner thigh muscles come down obviously through the inner thighs. And so I don't want to bring it right to here because that's where like more closer to attachment points. I want to be more in the meat of those adductors, those inner thigh muscles. And the same thing, now we're going to push in. So bring those hands into the front of the hips. Notice if anything further up your body, whether it's in your abdomen or your ribs or in your shoulders or up through your neck, if they want to get involved. And it's just the leg bones moving. That's all. So if there's parts of their leg going like this, I'm exaggerating it for purpose, but it's then it's not that your body can't do it. Move your legs in a range where it doesn't have to do it. Right? You can think about that part of your body as kicking in because there's a need to help out. So then provide the environment so the need to help out doesn't exist. So in other words, make the movement a little bit smaller. And the reason being, you don't have to make it smaller forever. We just want to help improve the neuromuscular communication, the motor control and coordination between your hips and your brain, so that these other parts don't have to compensate to help out. Okay, good. Now from here, let's just take a side bend. Now you might be wondering, why do a side bend if it's my knees that are the problem? Well, if you're holding tension up and through your upper body, or you don't have the strength or stability in your upper body, then you might be falling, like you might be kind of sinking into your pelvis. And sometimes moving and helping to release through the lateral line of your body can really help your ability to stand through your pelvis. And your pelvis is the bridge between your upper body and your lower body. And so how the mechanics of that pelvis are working, how that is absorbing load and helping you stand will have an impact sometimes on how your knees feel. Okay, so now this next one, I can't see you. I don't really know what's going on through your knees. So it may or may not be helpful for you, but we're going to take the leg up you're moving at the hip flexor now, and now we're going to rotate and place the ankle on the knee. Now for you, if that didn't work for you, if you were like, I would just come to here instead, because the reason why that's not a modification, it's that when I'm coming up to here and I'm rotating, I'm doing two things. One is flexion, and now one is rotation, and then I'm bringing the ankle onto the knee. And one thing that can happen, that can be a little bit tricky, is that we can bring the leg up, and then as we rotate, we don't have a lot of rotation through the hip. So then when we move this leg, we can actually create more rotation than is available in the lower leg, and that can torque the knee. So that's sometimes a reason why. Let me just do a little demo here for that. You can actually take your strap and place the strap around your knee like this. So it looks like this, right? So the knee is being held in flexion. And then what becomes interesting is you can slide that down around the foot and start to rotate that leg bone like that. And you're not having to rotate that tibia on the thigh bone. So then you really get to see where your range actually is. So that might be curious depending on where you're at. So the ankle's on the knee, and from here, feel your sitting bones and feel yourself vertical without trying to reach yourself forward. Like just be as vertical as you comfortably can and then bring yourself forward. And notice what's going on through your neck and your shoulders and your jaw and your eyes. If you've got a lot of knee pain and you're moving toward a surgery, and so there's probably quite a bit of deterioration through the knee, then it wouldn't be surprising if you're holding tension further up. And so while relaxing and releasing that through better movement might not change the skeletal stuff that's going on in the knee, it will certainly make you feel better. So a lot of what I'm doing has very little to do with changing the skeletal nature, because I'm not that good. But I can help you make you feel better within the context of what your skeleton is doing. Yeah? And then you can take those skills in toward having a surgery, and you might find that your outcome is actually better because your overall state is in a better state. Okay, now we're going to take our thumbs. We're just going to massage in through that line of the leg towards the ankle. So there's the ankle bone is here. And then you'll feel the bone along your shin here. And just bring your thumbs up and meet that. And just massage a little bit out through that tissue there. Because when we have pain, the pain is what grabs our attention, right? And so we don't tend to notice the other stuff that is the contributor to the pain. Not necessarily causal. I think that can be sometimes difficult to really ascertain, but you can find the contributors and the correlators, work with those, and you'll notice a big, big difference. And you'll start to discover those yellow lights, those whispers I like to talk about. Yeah, okay, now bring that ankle back down to the floor. Good, and now just notice and feel. Okay, and we're just gonna do the other side and bring that up. Yeah. Okay, now from here, let's bring that down to the floor, and we're going to move into a twist. So take your palms together, and I like bringing the middle finger under the chin, so to avoid leading with your chin. I want you to think, here's ribs, here pelvis, and the meat of that twist is through the abdomen. So when you're twisting, you're moving your rib cage in this context relative to your pelvis. Good. And then back. And then the other side. And then back. And again, the way that you're holding tension in through your torso can have a big impact on how you end up loading in your knees. Like some people will say, well, what the heck does a twist in your torso have to do with the knees? And it really is just how you hold yourself. Good. Okay, now, in a moment, we're going to come up into standing. And now sometimes coming up into standing can be really hard because you're having to load that much more through the knees. And so how can you do that in a way that will be instructive, a teachable moment, and then a few little tricks that might work for you, whether you're climbing stairs or coming up out of a chair. So the first one is remember what we just did with the strap and the block, is that you might find that pressing your legs out into your hands is helpful to come up into standing. You can also think about the center of your heel, the ball of your foot, and the base of the pinky toe, right? So if I'm here, center of the heel, ball of the foot, base of the pinky toe, right? So you're on a tripod, and then think about bringing your weight a little bit forward onto those points, feel the feet, and then come up into standing, yeah? Now what you might find is that when you take your hands out, or your legs, pressing them into your hands, and using more of the muscles through the outer hip, that might make your knees feel better as you come up. And then putting a block between your thighs, that might make it feel better. So you're pressing in and coming up, still feeling those 3 points. You might find that feels better. Okay, so just pay attention to that. And then come up into standing. So sometimes when you're like walking up the stairs, sometimes just placing your foot, so if I use this as the stair, is sometimes placing the foot and then taking your hand to the outer thigh and then coming on up. That might be interesting, or the same thing on the inner side. Pay attention to how your leg orients as you're going up the stair, and that will give you some really good information about how that knee is taking the load. Okay, so now I'm going to actually take these little guys out, and we're going to use a ball. I just want to do a little bit of ball work on the bottom of your foot, and then we're going to do a little ball work on the hip. Okay, so bringing that ball on the bottom of your foot, and really easily just roll out the ball. There are lots of trainers out there who are feet specific trainers. They got lots of feet stuff. Even if you do ball, like if you Google ball rolling, Jill Miller from Yoga Tune-Up does some really good stuff with balls. You can really sink into a lot of her work. And then I know Amy, if you're watching this, if you could let me know what your URL is. You do a lot of ball work as well, and you take a lot of Jill's work, but you add in my principles. So that's another alternative for you too, if you guys are looking for something along that line. And so Amy, as you're watching this, you can just post your link. So then there. And then what becomes interesting is when you're here and standing now, after you roll with the ball, notice what it is that you feel. And something I say a lot is if you had a change, then that's what you can have. Right? So there can be this new normal. Like tissue can change. And I think sometimes people can get almost, I wouldn't say it's resigned, but it's very close to being resigned. That once they start to feel the pain or the strain, it's just the way it's going to be. And our bodies are really plastic. I think that's a really important message, is our bodies are really, really plastic. Our nervous system is super plastic. The amount of change that can happen, no matter whatever your age, is huge. It's just that you are probably around people who don't know that. And so then you hear stories consistently of how bodies break down. And so then there's just this story that runs through your brain of that's just what happens. And so I hope to intervene on that story. Bring a different story in there of something else that's possible. Okay, so now you're standing, and now notice, and just play around. It may be that you play around and just come into a small little squat, and you're starting to notice just how you're loading in through your legs. Let's bring the strap back into it. And take the strap around the thighs. We'll do a little bit of chair work. Not with the chair, but you being the human chair. So now we've got the strap around the legs. And feeling the feet, pressing bend the knees a little bit, press the legs wide into the strap, and then start to move into a little chair. Now, a common thing that can happen, particularly if you're limited in through your hip, is that people do this, right? And so then this angle through the front of the hip doesn't change. So think about making it an angle between your hip, your leg bone, and your pelvis. And I've got my hand on the gluteal fold between my bum and my leg to remind me to come up into standing here. So I'm here, I'm hinging through the front, and then I'm lifting through here. I'm hinging here, I'm lifting through here. Now, this might seem like an unrelated story, but I see a lot with power lifters who are doing kettlebell swings and deadlifts. When they lift, they don't lift from an extension at their hip, they lift from their back and they do this. And they come up through here, through their back. I'm not demonstrating it very well because I don't do it, but they can kind of swing themselves through and they kind of avoid this whole area. And the reason I say that is you can develop a lot of issues doing that, one of them being knee issues. So as you improve this awareness and the actual working of how this leg bone in your hip moves, a lot can change. Okay, so then we're going to drop that and let's use the block and do the same thing. Okay, and now just bending. And so this is a hip, knee, and ankle movement, right? Noticing your feet on the floor. And if this is feeling okay, then you can take yourself back to a wall and just be here for a little bit. Just make sure that even if you've got the ability to come all the way down or quite deep into a wall sit, to not do that, right? You don't need to look like the chair. You only need to come down a little bit, so long as those knees are okay, and feeling the bottoms of your feet. Allow your feet to connect to your hip. I like to say how the feet are the punctuation of your posture. They're what are touching the ground, right? They are a foundation. Now remember that your pelvis is the platform through which your legs swing. So your pelvis needs to be stable, like the tissue all around that needs to provide stability to enable that leg to swing, because that enables where you place your foot. And the knee is the midway point, right? So we want to build the capability between those two areas. Okay, good? Good. And so you're exploring here, I hope, the relationship between these. So let's take the legs wide. Feel the bottoms of the feet. And then we're going to rotate your leg bones in the hip socket. Okay, now, lots of times in yoga, the cueing is about moving the toes. Let's bring it up, because while the toes are moving simply because, hopefully, the leg bone's moving in the hip socket. We're wanting to improve that rotation, right? And so just notice what you've got available there, and then you can play around here. And this might be too much, so find if it makes sense for you, right? Just because it's an exercise doesn't mean you need to do it, but I do want you to notice what you experience. So you've got more data about what is the relationship between your knees and the rest of your body. Hands come to the outside of your thighs, press those guys out, and start to move. Watch what goes on up in here, right? Are you gripping? Is there tension? Yeah? Okay, and then from here, come on back. All right, so now you're in standing. Now notice what you feel through the knees. What's going on through your feet? What's going on through your pelvis? And how are those knees doing? What are they expressing? Yeah? Okay, so now let's come back to your chair. And let's now, in sitting, find a little bit of ease here. Find your breath. And notice what you feel. And just take note of what you noticed with the parts of your body and your knees. What did you become aware of? And how can this contribute to your own process and journey with your knees? And if you would like to reach out to me, you'd like to really dig into the mechanical patterns that contribute to what's going on with your knees, or if you're recovering from a knee replacement and you'd like my help, we've got one spot available this month for my 3-month private series. So send us an email, okay? Be happy to help. You guys have a great practice. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Namaste. Take care.